began to grow. So they kept the Muslim Student Association and just
That's what we tried to
separated
start in Alabama State so far.
from the
Getting off to a rough start though.
Now all I want you to do is to make sure that he stays inside that frame. Cause are you gonna plan on you sometimes shift when you talk?
I probably do.
And just you know, if he.
I mean, I'll try not to.
If he goes outside the frame, just zoom it out.
Zoom it out.
Come here. Look inside the lens. Is it good height
Whoa,
for you?
No, I'm short. Let me
Is it good height for you? Or you gonna need a?
need to go up a little.
You gonna need it to go up or down?
Stay down.
Like that.
Yeah.
You just look.
Like
You
this.
see how you can. He's looking at. You see how you can zoom it out.
Yeah,
zoom it out a
that's
little.
perfect
Zoom it
right
out a
there
little.
though.
Yeah, zoom
Right
it to
there?
where I had. Yeah.
Okay.
It's already recorded.
Okay. You want me to go back to where it was?
Mm-hmm. That's good. He's inside the frame. Not too much.
Yeah. Now you check to make sure.
All right.
Okay.
How you doing?
Good.
Doing good.
We already?
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah. Oh no, no, man.
Okay.
So
We gotta turn it on.
turn your phone on.
Yeah, you said how you doing? I didn't know we were starting.
So well, what's your name? What do you do for Seraaj, and how long you been with the company?
My name is Abdus Salaam, and right now I'm a consultant for the company, and I've been with the company since 1995. Very close to coming upon be 10 years next year.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So what does your job detail? What are the responsibilities?
Okay, my job entails, number one, my biggest focus is on training.
Line 2, run line 1,
Just unplug it.
How do you do-
line
oh.
2.
Just unplug it from the phone.
Y'all kind of start over.
Okay.
And start over? Because I ain't walked behind him anyway.
Oh no, it's no matter. This is just
Run through?
just to see how he answers questions and just give pointers on speaking.
Okay.
But so what is your job in detail?
My job entails training, basically. I'll put it like training is the biggest focus that I have with the company, to try to get our people elevated in quality, in administering quality services to our clients. I do a lot of training with the professional family teachers, the so-called foster parents, but we use the term professional family teachers because it's more indicative of what we're trying to develop in our foster parents to be truly professionals and truly family oriented and true teachers in all aspects of the word. I also do a lot of training with people who are newly employed by Seraaj Family Homes, people who've just been hired. I primarily focus on teaching our values and our philosophy as an agency, that we're a company that's not only existing, but we have a culture that we exist by, and that culture is based on values, one of them being integrity, another one being honesty, another one being accuracy in our documentation and things that we say and do, and flexibility, accessibility, and quicker response. Those are the values that we have as an agency, and it should really permeate everything that we do in the delivery of our services. I do a lot of training on the RC consent decree. That's the legal basis for what we do. The United States has a constitution. Child welfare in the state of Alabama has the RC consent decree, and that's the basis for what we do. All of our service have to encompass our values, the consent decree, and hopefully at that point I can help assist people and enhance their ability to provide a practical approach with these two concepts in mind, the values of the company, the philosophy of the company, our mission statement, and the RC consent decree. I do a lot of support to our professional family teachers in the area of kind of, some people may call it putting out fires,
Mm-hmm.
If there's someone who's upset, someone who is disgruntled, someone who may even be thinking
so
about...
you do a little bit of the CQI?
Yes, a little bit of CQI. Yeah, I work kind of in conjunction with CQI because the value of our PFTs is so high that we want to try to do whatever we can to keep them. And a lot of times it's a small thing that has grown or maybe been neglected that I can assist in trying to preserve or retain that particular professional family teacher.
Okay. Well, how did you first get started with Seraaj?
Well, when I first came on board at Seraaj, it's so different from what it was or what it is today. We were housing some children, really working with children out of a hotel downtown, and I submitted my resume at a place called the Adams Inn at that particular time. And we didn't have an office like we do now. We didn't have telephones, etc. You know. And I applied for the position. There was only 2 positions open: family support worker and therapist. So I applied for the family support worker position and was hired.
What did that job entail?
That job entailed providing direct services to clients in our professional family teaching homes. Some of the kids that I work with were living in boarding homes. You know, I work with primarily teenagers, very challenging teenagers. I had 3 cases initially, and those cases kept me busy anywhere from 60 to 80 hours a week, trying to, in some cases, get the young people ready for independent living, and in other cases, one particular case that I was working on, it resulted in reunification, which is one of our mission statements, that we strengthen, empower, and reunify families.
Okay, well these were at-risk children?
Yes, they were very much at risk.
What determines a child to be at risk, and how at risk? You don't, of course, you don't have to give any names.
Right.
Just a few little details of how the kids you were dealing with were at risk.
Okay, one of the clients that I was working with, he was a borderline, mildly mentally retarded teenager, and he had some problems in terms of his identity or his sexuality. He was a cross-dresser, and he also had some other Axis 1 DSM-4 diagnosis, attention deficit disorder, oppositional defiant impulsive disorder, things like that. But it was very difficult for him to become stable in a foster home. And my job was to try to provide enough services to him in a home to stabilize him in that home so he could endure and appreciate and receive family-style living. And that was the goal primarily with him. He was what they would call a severe case in terms of challenging, you know. Some of the other kids that I work with, especially one teenager, he was in foster care as a result of conflict that started when he realized that his mother had been receiving checks for him growing up, and she had bought their home with the checks that were supposed to be for him. And this kind of developed because of his disability. You know, they had been able to get a monthly check for him. And this particular case, there was a lot of conflict where him and his mother really didn't get along well, and he was eventually removed from the home because he felt like she owed him money, you know, and this caused a lot of problems for him. He had some gang activity, he was into drug activity, and all of these things had to be addressed in terms of the service delivery. And we were able to get him ready for independent living, and he aged out of the system. And out of the 3 cases that I had, I'm in contact with 2 of them. In fact, I just heard from an old social worker that one of the children that I was working with, who was a young child, 6 years old, that we reunified with his grandmother, is doing well. He's 16 years old, he's in school, he's still in the same placement, and he's playing football. I don't have all the details, but I'm going to visit with his grandmother real soon just to kind of check on him. And the social worker that worked the case with me, now she's over the adoption unit at DHR. And we keep, you know, whenever she hears something, she always call me back and let me know what progress or lack of progress that he's making. And so far, he's been making progress, and that's been since 1997. So he's a successful reunification case.
Well, in a job that definitely does not sound easy, what would be the hardest points of the job? Because I always read about how many case managers and family support workers that come in and quit within a year or 2 years or 3 years. So what would be the hardest point? What would make a person quit? What is so hard about this job? Because it already does sound hard, but what would you say?
Well, I wouldn't say it's hard. It's challenging and it's constantly changing. We have to provide services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you have to be very flexible, you have to be very accessible. Earlier I mentioned to you the values of our agency and the values of our delivery of service. And one of them is being accessible and being flexible. As children need things, they need services, they need whatever, we have to be there to provide it. So being on call, if you will, for some people is a challenge. Another thing that was challenging for me was that you have to lose in terms of like weekend. You know, everything doesn't shut down on a Friday at 5 o'clock. Oftentimes that's when it cranks up on Friday at 5 o'clock. And early in my training, Abdus Seraaj, who was the CEO, he taught me from a concept of an emergency room and the value of what we do equates to like an emergency room in a hospital. And you have to always be accessible. And when he was giving us these concepts, I was eager to learn them, and I believed in him and what he was saying. And so it's been not so hard for me, but just I had to make adjustments. You know, you have to acclimate to the situation. And those are the things that maybe be challenging for some people. And for some people, the way we got paid. You got paid for what you did, you know. I viewed it as having a business within a business, you know, so that wasn't a problem for me. Because whatever you bill for in terms of services, whatever services you provide, that's what you were paid for. But there was no limit to it, so I thought that was a great thing. You know, here I am on a job that doesn't limit me to just 40 hours a week. It was open. You know, I could work as much as I was physically and mentally able to work. So things that might be negatives to some people were pluses for me.
So you kind of just have, what would be an advice to a family support worker that was just coming in to the field arena?
Well, I think it's good for people who come in that they have a passion for working with children in the first place. I have found through experience people who don't have that passion, and when I say passion, I kind of describe it. That means that you're going to be there regardless. You're going to move regardless. You're going to respond quickly regardless. You know, if it's at 9 o'clock or if it's at a.m. or p.m., you're going to respond regardless. And sincerity. These are things that I don't think we can so much train a person to be. You have to come with these things. Not to say that if you don't have them, you can't pick them up or you can't develop them through the experience of working here. But I think that passion to work with children and families and to see, you know, a lot of people talk about giving back to the community. You hear a lot of athletes, you know, after they, while they're athletes and they're very successful, you know, but I think grassroots people, and I consider myself a grassroots kind of person, you know, can give back also. A lot of times it may not be money that you can give back, but here's a job that you can give back to the community and make a living at the same time. So I thought it was a big plus for me.
Okay. Well, what are some of the exact specific services that a company like Seraaj would be able to provide, and how would the family support worker play into that?
Okay, we provide services based on two, we'll call it two paradigms, we'll put it that way, or two modules. One module would be in-home services, family preservation, to prevent children from coming into care, from coming into a foster care situation. Then those children who need that particular aspect of services, another module would be foster care, therapeutic foster care in particular. We work with children that in the beginning, really, we work with children that no other agencies would even touch. And the amazing thing about it, I don't know what the intention was behind us working with those type children, but the children got better. And so it's twofold. You know, we serve the community in a twofold module. One being, you know, trying to prevent children going into that home, providing services to stabilize the children at home with their family. Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe they lost their cool in terms of discipline or something like that. Maybe this discipline, or where it may appear to be abusive, wasn't intentionally abusive, but the children really were in a safe home, but something happened and precipitated that particular situation that caused them to do something that was, you know, an isolated incident in a physical sense. So we're there to make assessments to try to see if what's best for the family. You know, is it better for the family? Can we achieve safety? Can we achieve stability and permanency? Can we achieve educational success in this family if we provide services? Or is it too risky, so we want to pull the children out? And we do that in conjunction with DHR.
So after you make these assessments and you're in conjunction with DHR, how do you do that? How exactly do you come about this? Do you give psychological counseling? Do you give advice? Do you give rides home? What do you do to help stabilize this family or stabilize this child inside of a foster home?
We like to think of Seraaj in terms of child welfare is kind of a one-stop shopping situation for child welfare services. A family primarily would need, in terms of going into the home, a family support worker, caseworker, or a therapist, and a therapist. And the therapy would do counseling that's needed, individual counseling or family counseling. And the family support worker or the caseworker would be a supportive. It's kind of like the therapist is the quarterback giving the plays, and the family support worker and the caseworker execute those plays. It could be in the area of basic living skills, where we're trying to prepare a teenager for independent living, and we're teaching them those skills necessary for them to live independently in society, like all of us have to do. We have to keep our clothes together, have to keep them clean, we have to learn how to iron, we have to learn how to cook, we have to learn how to shop, we have to learn how to have a checking account, banking, to function independently in society, and teach them responsibility. That's one aspect of our services. If children are going to go back home and be reunified, then we're trying to do things to strengthen the parenting that the child receives in the home, and we have to include the parent in those particular services. So a lot of what we do is dealing with teaching parents, if they don't know, how to parent in the best way and in the most productive way for their family, so they can be stable and safe.
Oh, okay. So let's say we had a family, and maybe a domestic violence situation. You got 2 kids in a home, and there's domestic violence going on in the home. Father hitting the mother, mother getting mad, hitting the kids, abusively. How do you come in and help solve this family's problems, or do you make an assessment first and decide whether the problems are even solvable?
Okay, what happens when how a case is initiated, okay, is through DHR. DHR, and we call this the front end of the service delivery. Sometimes we're included in that, sometimes we're not, but we love to be on the front end because the chances are greater for success in the beginning, as opposed to once a child has been in the system for a certain period of time. What DHR, they will call us and say, we have a referral for you. And they'll determine that, tell us that it's the front end of the case. In other words, these children are still in the home, and we want to go out and make an assessment. That's where the partnership comes in with DHR and Seraaj Family Homes. We go out with DHR social worker, one of our workers, or maybe 2 of our workers. It could be a therapist and a marketing person. A lot of times our marketing team will serve as the front end people to open up cases and assess the case for what services they may need. And help DHR make an assessment that will determine if this family can achieve success in staying together through services in-home, or do we need to remove the children temporarily, maybe place them with a relative or something like that, and provide services under separate domains. We wouldn't neglect that parent, though. We would always try to keep reunification, if we have to separate them, at the forefront, so we can try to get those families back home. I think that's one of the things that separates us from other agencies, is that we believe wholeheartedly in reunification. Although reunification takes a child out of our care, and from a business standpoint, a person might say, well, how are you going to make money? When it comes down to a decision based on money and what's best for families, we always choose what's best for the family. And that's the hallmark of our attitude in terms of, in fact, our culture in terms of dealing with children and families. When there's a moral decision that has to be made, we're going to choose the moral high road as opposed to what may make us a few dollars in terms of business. So the front end of the case is really where the best services can be provided.
So as far as strategy goes on these cases, which seem fairly very difficult, who comes up with this strategy and who has the final say on strategy as far as helping these children and making final decisions?
Okay, that's done through a process called an individualized service plan. And this is going back to, I've spoken earlier about the legal aspect of what we do, where our principles and our rules and regulations come from, and that's the RC consent decree. It goes back to that. The social worker connects with Seraaj Family Homes. That's the first partner. You have the family there. If anybody else is involved, say for instance there's some diagnostic things that need to be done, some testing, maybe from a psychologist, or some testing relative to medication from a psychiatrist, all of these people should be involved in this ISP. Anybody that's providing services to try to benefit that particular family, then they should be in the ISP. And through the meeting of all of these people, we would come to an agreement in terms of what the plan of service delivery is going to be via the ISP. Who's going to do it, when it's going to be done, when can we check, measured outcome, etc. We would hope now that all of those services would be under the Seraaj umbrella, because of, not so much because of we just want everything at Seraaj, but the continuity of the services can be maintained. There's a checks and balance that we can do in-house as opposed to fragmented services through a lot of different agencies. Like one agency may be the psychiatry, another agency may be providing therapy, and Seraaj may just be doing the family support work. That has a tendency, and history has taught us that the reporting, the documentation just doesn't get to everybody communication-wise to be able to provide continuity in the services. But under the Seraaj umbrella, we can do that, and the continuity of services are there. We can meet easier, we can meet more often, and we can put a check and balance system on ourselves so we can achieve the desired outcome.
Okay, so you said the ISP. Who will be a part of this ISP team, a group of individuals?
This primarily is decided upon by the family, by the DHR social worker, and Seraaj Family Homes if we're the agency that's involved. DHR has the power to choose whatever agency they want to provide the services, so it's very competitive. You're only as good as you are when a crisis happens, really. You're only as good as you are when a crisis happens. So we want to try to be out front in terms of what we do in these kind of situations. It's still determined by a team. DHR has a slight edge in this team decision making. They're more or less the facilitators of this, you know, but everybody is supposed to have equal input. And anybody that's involved, if say for instance you have a family, like you gave a scenario, maybe the mother wants to be involved, maybe the father is involved, maybe an aunt or somebody who has the potential to be a plus for this family in the service delivery and trying to rebuild or rectify whatever the problem is, they should be there. Even the pastor, maybe somebody from the school, anybody that has a vested interest in the welfare of that particular family really should be a part of the ISP.
Okay, so we have the child. Let's say the child needs to be removed from the home. You make your assessment. How do we get that child parental services? How do we choose that PFT? Does that play into the ISP, or is the PFT chosen before the ISP process? Is the PFT a part of the ISP?
Okay, in the initial front end of the services, and that's what we're talking about here, you know, being involved on the front end, we haven't gotten to that point where the PFT would be involved. If we make a decision to remove the child, then you would engage our intake department, and they would try to match up that child with an existing PFT that we have, an existing home, based on the needs of that particular child, based on location a lot of times, based on school. We want to try to, if the child is going to a particular school, if we know that we have a PFT in that particular area, we'll try to do that so we can not alter the child's environment if we don't have to. all of this is done in a matching process that's done by our intake department, which is made up of several master level people, counselors in most cases, that do this on a daily basis. So we're constantly trying to match the right family for the right needs of the right child.
Are there any other factors involved in matching up the PFT based on maybe race, age, culture?
You know, it's amazing. We have placed a lot of diverse cultures with diverse cultures. You know, we believe that if it's a quality home, if there's no specifics involved in terms of like, we may consider, or we have to consider really, maybe the religion of the child. If we have a home that's the religion of that child, that would be a factor in making the placement. It may be that the child is going to a particular school. It may be that he has some family members in a certain area. We would also use that as a factor in terms of the match. But just solely on ethnicity, I can't remember the case where that was the deciding factor. I'm sure there are some cases where that may be an issue, based on the child's family or something like that. But as a rule, we look for quality.
Okay. Now, as far as the child goes, does the child have some say so in where he's placed? Let's say I'm a black 15-year-old child.
Mm-hmm.
So far I feel comfortable with the services Seraaj has been giving me. But now you, for whatever reasons,
Mm-hmm.
You have to place me with a white couple.
Okay.
I do not feel comfortable in living in the home of a white couple. Can I object to this, or do I have to go with the program?
It depends on your age. It depends on your age, and even if you're in the age of majority, I think it's 10 years old. But it depends on a lot of different factors. Where if we know that a child would not be comfortable in this particular home, no, we wouldn't place the child in that home. The child does have say-so, and I believe that the child needs to have say-so, because he's going to have to live there, and he's going to be held to a certain standard of behavior. And if he can't achieve it in a home, one thing about the consent decree is that we have to put children in a situation where there's a likelihood of success, that we are almost certain that the child can achieve in this environment. And that wouldn't be a comfortable environment if a child is telling us that they don't want to be in a particular home, But it depends on his age and the situation.
Okay. So after you did this family support work, where did you move on from there?
Okay, the next position I had was, I was called a wraparound supervisor, a wraparound coordinator really was what it was. And that particular job was kind of a gateway to management. We would have certain wraparound coordinators. We had, I think, 5 of them. And they would manage the office on a certain date. Like maybe my day would be to manage the office on Mondays. And we would manage the office, and also we would provide supervisory services to family support workers where, I had just left that position, so now I began to supervise family support workers and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. It wasn't called that at that particular time, but it also had a QA component to it, quality assurance. And we were just making sure that our customers are satisfied, that our children are safe, and that we were communicating, teach them communication skills, how to communicate with the DHR social workers, how to provide the services, how to open up cases. It became more of a supervisory position as opposed to doing it myself.
Okay, we're just going to stop for a moment because I need to just with some more.
They'll turn the talk you gave into a whole other talk.
Editing.
The editing. Yeah.
Editing is beautiful.
I said, no, I ain't saying it like that.
Well, no, he said it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were talking about your position as wraparound service manager.
Mm-hmm.
And with all that in detail. So, what was your strategy for that to properly manage, play that game of chess with these people and their jobs?
Well, it was very rewarding. It gave me an opportunity to strengthen my relationship with the DHR social workers. And really, I became kind of, I've always been attracted to things that other people don't want to do when I'm on a job. because I felt like that would increase your value. You know, if you do something nobody else wants to do on a consistent basis, people will call on you, you know. So I've always kind of tried to, you know, use that as a strategy in terms of me working. And whenever they got a social worker who was very difficult, nobody wanted to work with them. Just like when I was a family support worker, I had cases nobody else would work with, you know. That kind of gave me an edge in terms of my relationship with DHR social workers. And if I can turn around a relationship with a difficult, if you will, social worker, then that would increase my value with the company, and it would be a good thing for me, you know. And that's what I started to do, you know. Whenever I would hear about a social worker that somebody said that they, you know, she just got rid of us, or she's not going to use us, or she's upset with us, you know, I would like to, you know, be the one to go in and try to talk to them. And that's how that kind of putting out fires got started, you know. And so up until this day, you know, I've been able to, and I'm real thankful for that, talk with social workers. And so far I haven't had a negative relationship, you know, with anyone yet, you know. And I, you know, I have to give that credit to maybe somebody else. But I've been doing it, you know. So that really kind of strengthened me in that, to be able to start going. Because at first I had a kind of a fear of going into DHR, you know, in terms of talking with the social workers, because it can be challenging, you know. You can say the wrong thing and get in a lot of trouble there in terms of the company's relationship with DHR. So I always valued that.
Certain private information.
Yeah, private information, and then just how you say things, you know. You're under the magnifying glass. You got to understand now, Seraaj didn't have the reputation that it has today. It had no reputation. We were setting the stage, you know. We were building the foundation. And so everything that we said was scrutinized and criticized and dissected, you know. And so we had to be real careful that we were within the guidelines. And really where the help came was when the CEO advised me to, excuse me, learn more and more about the RC consent decree. And I started to see that if you have knowledge and you can implement that knowledge and teach that knowledge to other people, you know, you become an asset instead of a liability.
Okay, so after that job position, where did you move on?
Let me see. I think I became next like a senior manager. There was a man that worked. He was like the senior manager. Then Abdul decided to put me as a co-senior manager with him, or more, it really was kind of like an assistant senior manager, but it wasn't called that at that particular time.
Which office was this at?
This was at the old office on 3rd Avenue. This was really the second office that we had, not the first office that we had. And just as a side note, I used to do the janitorial work for the office. You know, I saw an opportunity there. And I grew up in that type of environment with my family. My grandfather had a janitorial service as we were kids, and I saw that the people weren't doing a good job. So I lobbied, and I'd come in early in the morning and clean up the place. And I didn't tell anybody. Nobody really knew it, you know. And that was another opportunity for me at Seraaj Family Homes. But I guess one of the things that I really have always liked about the agency is that there's always something for you to do. You know what I mean? If you can't find anything to do at Seraaj Family Homes to build your quality and become an asset, it's your fault, because the opportunity has always been there.
Okay. So senior manager, well, assistant senior manager, what would you do in order to help your senior manager, and what were some of the other job details?
Well, I really learned a lot about the relationship between state DHR, local DHR, and Seraaj Family Homes and the community. There was an initiative going on by the Casey Foundation called Family to Family. I got a chance to learn more about the business aspect of everything, and how I always had an inclination to know how do we, you know, how does the business structure work, you know. And I got an opportunity to understand what funds are state funds, what vendor contract is versus a grant program, truly understanding what the non-profit versus for-profit status is all about. And that really gave me a bigger appreciation for what we were doing, you know, because like for instance, the DHR, local DHR, the wraparound services that we provide, it comes out of their local funds called flex funds. And to learn about that really helped me to be able to deal with them more effectively and negotiate and advocate for services based on the knowledge of all of this, you know. So it gave me a better business aspect of what we did.
Oh, okay. Well, what exactly did you do as assistant senior manager?
I pretty much did whatever the senior manager and the CEO wanted me to do. But again, I did a lot of work with local DHR, and then we started to stretch out. We were beginning to get cases out of Pickens County, which is Anniston. And I started to travel a little bit to see what other DHRs was about. We also had an office at that time in Montgomery. I got an opportunity to see what that is all about. Then there was another transition that came about, and I started to learn how you can improve yourself in a lateral sense as opposed to a vertical sense, and in terms of being an asset to the company. A lot of people were we made an acclamation towards more master's level people in management position, and at that particular time, if you didn't have a master's, you know, master's level people were beginning to take some of the places of it, so we had to move into other positions, and Abdul taught me in I thought a very unique way how you could add value to yourself by gaining a training ability. And he kind of gave us it wasn't happening like it is today back then. It was kind of like a future of where we were trying to go and where we were going to be. And it's amazing, all of those things that he used to talk about, having nurses serving our children, having offices all over the state, providing what we call one-stop shopping, very similar to the Super Walmart concept or an emergency room concept. All of those things came to fruition. I started to see it being developed one by one by one. And the company has taken on a number of transitions, you know, in terms of management style, in terms of the wheel hasn't changed, but we've added little things to it and kind of tweaked it, as they say, over the years. So I've been able to, number one, believing in what we do made it easy for me to make adjustments and come out of one position and go into another position. And that kind of led the way for this consultant position that I'm doing now with the experience that I've had.
Okay, so would you, as assistant senior manager, would you act sort of like a liaison and an advocate and a learning agent for Seraaj as far as communicating between DHR and Seraaj?
Yeah, it really, managing the office, managing the cases. At that particular time, we had a high number of wraparound cases, and I managed those cases, worked the cases myself. It was kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Boston Celtics. At one time, Bill Russell was a center there, and he became a player coach. And I was kind of like, that's the way I viewed myself, you know, as a player coach. You know, I was doing some coaching, but I was also playing too when needed. And so I was supervising we had maybe in excess of 200 rap cases at one time. So I was supervising all of those cases, making sure they get assigned, making sure they're being served, that the clients were being served right, making sure the ISPs, the IEPs, the court hearings were all attended, and that we were exemplifying the values of Seraaj Family Homes in all of those particular spots, wherever we were doing, wherever we were going. And that was the beginning of me really kind of taking on the role as a consultant, although I was in that position of a co-manager, so to speak. And then the manager left, and I was waiting on someone to come in and take that position, but that didn't happen for some years, so I had to function as the role of a senior manager.
Oh, okay. So after you were senior manager, what next?
Well, we had a break in our services, so to speak. You know, we were asked to stop providing services for a while so they could check our papers under the Nachman administration. And so we were given something like maybe anywhere from maybe 16, 17, 18 months. We weren't really working as Seraaj Family Homes, the agency, so to speak. We were shut down as a part of an investigation. And so that's what happened at that particular point. But we were fortunate to open back up, and I had gotten a job with UAB. I was working in substance abuse and AIDS awareness with them on one of their programs. And when we got the call to come back, you know, we were still constantly in contact, constantly planning. I mean, it wasn't like we were just out of it, you know. We were working, trying to come together with something that we could do to provide these services in the community. But we were fortunate enough to survive that particular scrutiny that we went under, and it was all fabricated. There was no truth into any of those things that was said about us. And the truth prevailed, you know, and we were able to start back. And so at that point I came back to Seraaj, and it was back to square one. You know, I was a caseworker. I think we lost the title of family support exclusively, and I became a caseworker at that particular time. Kind of, again, like a business within a business, a private contractor almost, you know, just doing that specific work, trying to get the company built again because we had lost everything.
Oh, okay. Well, after that, how did you finally move to consulting? How did you finally get to that position?
You know, Luke, mine is kind of hazy sometimes how I ended up becoming a consultant. If you know, and I'm sure you know your father pretty well, things happen quickly sometimes with him. I started to begin to get back into that same role of a co-manager, so to speak. And as time moved on, we grew and we started to establish a lot of things in terms of upgrading our credentials of people, the quality of staff, and etc. You know, so I got real attracted to this trainer position that Abdul had always talked about, trainer consultant, management consultant, those type of things, and he kind of sold me on the idea that a consultant can do a lot of different things from the company, for the company, and you always need a trainer. So from a longevity standpoint, from a job security standpoint, I felt comfortable, and I wasn't really just crazy about management in terms of being a hands-on, like a stay in an office almost senior manager. That just wasn't me. I did it because it was a need at that particular time, but the consultant trainer was very attractive to me because I like to move around, and the trainer and the consultant gets a chance to move around a lot and travel, you know, go to other sites. And we were beginning to open up other sites. That was another experience that I really enjoyed, opening up other offices, assisting in that. You know, when we started the office in Anniston, I was involved in getting that office off the ground. When we started the office in Huntsville, I was involved in getting that office off the ground. From a training standpoint, I was involved in getting the Coleman office off the ground, you know. So, and we've been fortunate to have several offices here in Birmingham. So that's another thing that I've enjoyed, you know, being able to say, well, I helped get that office started, you know. I helped get Seraaj Family Home started in Birmingham. That's, you know, you don't get that opportunity too much in life. Usually wherever you work is already there, you know. So very seldom do you get a chance to build something, you know, be a part of building something yourself from the ground up.
Oh, okay. So, just to reiterate and maybe get on some points that we haven't covered. As a consultant, you would come on site, you know, maybe, you know, how would you help that office get started?
Okay, what we would do, initially we have to establish rapport with DHR. And the same things that I've learned in Birmingham, it's the same formula anywhere we go. And you have to have the personality, the adaptability, accessibility to be able to deal with those people and secure authorization for services. You got to be able to advocate for services. You got to be able to express risk factors in services, because risk is what generates services for our children and families. So to go in, go to ISPs, go out, open up cases, help the structure of the office, you know, whoever's going to be the manager of that office, you know, help get that off the ground in terms of services and training for everybody, training for the GPS, facilitation. I mentioned GPS, but I meant for professional family teachers. I'm a GPS facilitator. So I do training for our foster parents to become therapeutic. So that's something that I do a lot of work in, and that's what has been the backbone of the flagship of Seraaj Family Homes, is therapeutic foster care. So I play a big role in training those foster parents to become licensed, you know, so they can take children into their home. So that's been a big plus. You always need a training when you're opening up a new office.
Okay, well, just get off the subject
Mhm.
for a second. What was the difference between a family support worker and a caseworker, if there is a difference? And why the name change from family support worker? Because I think, at least to me, family
Mhm.
support worker sounds a lot better. It sounds a lot more, family oriented. It
Yeah.
sounds like you're not dealing with some guy in a suit. You're dealing
Okay.
with a human being. You
Yeah.
say family support worker.
Yeah.
Just like you feel more comfortable being called a PFT, a professional. That person gets pride out of being called professional than
Mhm.
just called a foster parent.
Well, a family support worker and a caseworker are very similar, but there are some differences. There's some things that a caseworker can do, family support work, but a family support worker can't do everything that a caseworker can do.
Oh, so a caseworker is a much more technical job, and he has a lot more privileges, like opposed to a psychologist and a
Psychiatrist?
psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm. It's similar. Like the psychologist in most cases can't write prescription because they're not an MD. Psychiatrist is an MD. The caseworker has to have some training in human services that's unique to that position, whereas a family support worker doesn't. Caseworker has to have a degree and has to have a certain number of human service hours, So it's a little more technical in terms of credentials to qualify to do that. And that has a lot to do with Medicaid billing. But at heart, I think most of us at Seraaj Family Homes are family support workers, and I can appreciate what you said. It does sound real good. When we first came into Birmingham with these services, DHR would refer to people as behavior aides, and we kind of countered that with the family support worker.
Yeah, behavior aid. I mean,
That's worse.
that's even worse.
Yeah.
I mean, that's even worse than caseworker. Caseworker just sounds like, could be, prison, caseworker.
Mm-hmm. Well, you call it caseworker, case manager. You really.
Which, sometimes it's just important title things.
Yeah, it is, and it's also important to establish your own language about things if you can. And that's something that I've learned since I've been here at Seraaj Family Homes. If you establish your own language, then you also establish your own definition.
Your own identity.
And anybody who wants to know what that is, they got to come to you. So your own identity, it's a cultural thing too, and it's also, it adds a certain uniqueness to your delivery of services, even in the titles that you do. And then a lot of people, they identify with titles. With some people, that's a big thing, a title, I'm more outcome oriented, titles are nice, but what kind of work do you do? What skills do you have? That's what's important. And I'm seeing now in the business world that I notice, and I tell a lot of the young people this, when you hear about Bill Gates, the computer mogul, nobody ever talks about what degree he has or what college he graduated from.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? It's not about so much that's important, it has a place, but I'm learning now that what can you bring to the table that the company needs where you can always be called to provide a service. And that's, when Abdul explained the lateral movement as opposed to vertical movement, it really opened up a door for me because I'm getting more training all the time to do more training. And it's an endless cycle, as long as you got people, somebody got to train.
Okay.
And so why not me?
Oh, okay. Well, it looks like you moved up and down and all the way across Seraaj. You're a family support worker,
Mm-hmm.
a
Wraparound coordinator,
a assistant
senior manager, co-manager, senior manager,
uh,
management consultant.
management consultant, and consultant trainer.
Yeah, consultant trainer.
I just like to go over each job. Family support worker. What's the advice? I know you've already may have said it, but what's the
Mhm.
advice that would you give a family support worker in that particular field?
Seek the knowledge. Be passionate about your work. Be sincere. And whatever weaknesses you have, whatever deficiencies you have, partner with somebody who has those as strengths.
Okay.
If you're not organized, let the people that you partner with in your work be organized, so you can balance it off, That's what's been my things that I can do, things that I'm not good at. I try to associate with people who are good at those things so we can get a balance.
All right, wraparound service manager.
Wraparound coordinator.
Wraparound service.
Have a knowledge, you gotta have an expertise of family support work. Be able to train family support workers how to do this work, how to communicate with social workers, how to document. So much of what's important to us is our documentation. When we had our little encounter with the commissioner and we were closed down temporarily, our documentation is what saved us. And ultimately, that's what's going to save any organization. Because if nobody knows, the only way people can know what you did is by documentation or having it on video or something like that. It has to be documented in some kind of way. Otherwise, it's not known. So accuracy in our documentation, everything goes back to those values. They may be simple. A lot of people say, why are you always talking about those values? I know they say that in training, but those values have to permeate everything that we do. And if we do that, it keeps us safe. And if we have the team approach, it keeps us safe as an agency. It keeps us out of so many frivolous lawsuits and stuff like that. Each step that I've taken at Seraaj Family Homes, and I call it just little opportunities that I've been in the right place at the right time to receive, has been from those principles. In fact, I was practicing the principles before I knew the principles, because I was being taught the principles. We didn't have them in the shape and form like we have today. Values of Seraaj Family Homes and a format, so to speak. We were just emulating and imitating our teachers. And I was fortunate to be taught by the CEO. And I don't think today you can put a value on that. I was always taught to emulate and imitate. When I traveled with him, and I always thought that was a great honor to be able to travel with any CEO of a company, but to have a CEO who would call you and ask you, I want you to go out of town with me, we're going to do this or we're going to do that, I always tried to benefit from that, and today I don't have to talk to him as much as I used to, because he's taught me, pretty much how to adhere to the philosophy and values of the company.
All right.
Now I'm talking to his son.
All right, co-senior manager.
That was a position that really helped me learn the business aspect of what we do. Again, I hate to be so repetitive, but it goes back to the principles, the values. If you have integrity, if you're honest, if you don't cover up stuff, you don't lie about stuff, you admit to your mistakes promptly. Quick response is one of our values. You got to quickly respond to problems. You got to quickly respond to things that you do wrong. I've learned that quick response, it negates excuses. If you respond quickly to a problem, I used to work in retail, and probably more of my retailing experience has helped me in this work than anything else, because this work evolves around customer service. If you can't satisfy the customer, you're not going to exist. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create lifetime satisfied customers. And that position kind of helped me to realize that, because I learned more about management, I learned more about business.
All right, senior manager. What advice would you give to a senior manager? Besides, of course,
pray. Pray a lot. That's a real powerful position. And that position has matured and evolved over the years. It used to be strictly a management
Battery's
position.
out.
Yeah, so we're talking about senior manager and how it has evolved.
Yeah.
So what it's evolved into now?
It's primarily a position that requires business knowledge of business. It's not so much of a clinical position anymore. It's not so much that you have to be a therapist to be that anymore. You have to know how to manage from a business perspective. I would think that someone with a degree in business administration and practical experience, good practical experience, would probably be better fit for that job than, say, a master's level therapist or a social worker or something like that. Now, if that person has that ability, that's even better. But it has lost the clinical aspect to it. It's not required. Seraaj Family Homes is now looking for and trying to shape people into leadership positions, you know, as opposed to just being a manager. You know, you can manage something and that's from 9 to 5, but leadership is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week situation. And that's what we're looking for more now than before. I think it has evolved based on the knowledge of the corporate support team. And the knowledge of the support team is constantly rising. They're learning more and more about business as we speak. And we see it trickle down or trickle up, however you want to look at it, all the time. So I think those positions are really evolving into what it has to be as an agency the size that we are now. I hate to say that I don't like to say we're big or huge or anything like that, but we're a lot larger than we used to be. And what it took to manage almost like a mom and pop type situation initially, it takes a bigger situation today. It takes somebody that has a lot of business expertise.
Okay, well, with that, this is interesting. Oh, so I'm a senior manager.
I'm sorry, guys. I have the tapes down.
The button that's record.
Oh,
Record.
so it's recording now?
And that took a picture.
Oh, now turn it off. Like turn the recording off.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Thank you all. This is Abdus Seraaj, to the Seraaj Family Home members and our representatives from DHR. Thank you for having me here this evening. I've come to let my light shine. I've come to let my light shine so that together our lights will glow around the world. The light of the children, the light of the parents, the light of the foster parents, the light of those who embrace children in the community. It is time for us to let our light shine. If we do not realize the needs of our children today, then the light is already burned out. If we do not notice that this society that we live in is all bent toward hurting children, neglecting children, abusing children, destroying children, that light is already being snuffed out. But as long as we have God-fearing citizens who know that the children are the light of the world, then the light will shine and cannot be extinguished by hatred, cannot be extinguished by no taxes, cannot be extinguished by politics and government and heartless people and cold criminals and parents who give birth and leave a child to the world not knowing where their next meal will come from. These children's light must shine. And that light can be ignited day by day by each one of us. We don't have to be rich to do it. We don't have to be popular to do it. We don't have to be well known or well advertised to do it. We just have to be a child of God. We just have to know that when we wake up in the morning, that we're getting up for a reason, and that when a little bright eye looks in our direction, it's our responsibility to ignite that eye with love, with encouragement, with motivation, with direction, with time, with patience, with understanding. To let our light shine is to have one vision. And that one vision is to know, as my grandmother told me years ago, when it rains, water does not fall on one roof. In other words, when troubles come, if one child is in trouble, if two children are in trouble, if children around this state are in trouble, then all of us are in trouble. When water falls, it does not rain on one roof. When trouble comes, it's going to touch all of us, one way or the other. So the thing that we must do is let our light shine. You know, like at Halloween, folks will put a candle at the door, or they'll put some kind of sign to let the children know to come here, and this is where the goodies are. Well, we've got to let every day be a day of celebration. We've got to let our little light shine and have our sign on the door to say the goodies are here. And that's what we have here tonight. Persons that have made themselves visible. Persons who've made themselves available. Because you know how important it is for someone to believe in you. For someone to support you. For someone to be there for you. When I think back to my own background, growing up in the Delta of Mississippi, Greenwood, Mississippi, my home place, I cannot forget the many days when I was in programs, speaking on stage, singing on stage, playing basketball, running track, being out there with the band, and knowing that I had a cheering squad, my family, in the bleachers, in the audience, sitting there supporting me. But I'll never forget that first program, my first year, because sometimes people can be so cruel. My grandmother was there for the PTA meeting that night, and my teacher had practiced and rehearsed me to sing Silent Night for the Christmas program. My grandmother made me a white island dress, put big old bows in my hair, and had me ready to sing Silent Night. Little did I understand when my teacher had me to stand at the back of the group, and my good friend Sarah at the front of the group. Sarah was pretty, had long wavy braids. Sarah couldn't sing, but I didn't know that Sarah had been taught to mouth the song. And I'm standing back there, the teacher told me before we went on the stage, shaking me, now you sing loud and strong, loud and strong. And I was back there singing Silent Night as best I could, loud and strong, till my throat was hurting. My grandmother came from in the back of that auditorium. Stop! Wait a minute! Baby sister, grandmother was in my corner. And that's what our children look forward to, knowing that somebody is in their corner. And so many of you have made your own testaments to stand up for these children that we celebrate today, that we are blessed to have in our midst. And it's so important because we understand, and I guess that's why when I work with young people, I'm concerned. I have 185 during the summer youth camp. I try to make sure that every child has a responsible role and an important part to play. Because I don't want any child to feel like I felt that day when I was standing at the back of the group, singing Silent Night with my brand new island white dress on and my big old bow in my hair in December. Singing to the top of my voice. And it didn't bother me that people couldn't see me because I couldn't see them, I didn't know. But it sure did make me feel good, and it made me open my eyes to my society when my grandmother stepped out and spoke up for me. Speaking up for me is what the children need today. We need to let them know that you are our me. You are the one. We love you. We support you. We embrace you because we know where you're coming from. Children, you've got to understand, every adult in this room, they know what games you play and what troubles you have before you even tell them. They can tell by the way you walk in the room when something is wrong. They can tell by the way you fall into your food when something is bothering you. They can tell by the way you stare when you look at them, when you don't express and tell what's wrong with you. Just like in the Antoine Fisher story, if you have seen the movie at all. It was a beautiful beginning when Denzel Washington was a doctor and the young man had troubles and frustrations, Antoine Fisher, and he sat there and stood there and refused to talk. He said, well, you're just going to sit right here until you're ready to talk to me. And you're going to come back every Friday and sit right there until you're ready to talk to me. And finally one day, because Antoine decided that he was tired of sitting and staring and looking at the doctor, that he would talk. You must decide, children, that somebody cares. And if a person is giving you a roof, putting a roof over your head, giving you a clean bed, cooking your food, sending you out with their name behind you, picking you up every day with a smile, then it's time for you to break the silence code. And it's time for you to talk. Because they're doing it for a reason, because they've been there. They may not have had the exact same problems you had, but they understand problems. They didn't live this long for nothing. They didn't become a good cook or a good housekeeper or a loving adult for nothing. They were being prepared throughout their lives for this moment. That's why Langston Hughes gave us the poem, Mother to Son, when he says, well, son, I tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal staff. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and balls torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor. Bad. All the time, I've been climbing on them, and reaching landings, and turning corners, and sometimes dropping. Going in the dark, where there ain't been no light. So, boy, don't you sit down on them steps because your fire is kind of hard. Don't you fall now. Because I'm still moving. I'm still climbing on. And life for me ain't been no crystal staff. You see, a crystal staff is when you can see every ream of the ladder. When you step, you know where you're going. But no crystal staff means you got to walk by faith. So you children need to continue walking by faith. Talk to your parent. Talk to your foster parent. Talk to the person that's taking care of you and trying to embrace your life. Holding things back and being angry and slamming the door and rolling your eyes and crying at night does not make an answer for you. The answer comes when somebody knows where the problem lies and they try to help you and they work with you and they pray for you and they help to give you faith to go on. talking about. And it's for you. We are here for you. And if we can't do you any good, there's a judge greater than you for us. He sees all, hears all, knows all, and deals with all. A-L-L, all. Sometimes we wonder why we have these headaches and backaches and troubles and worries. Because the God I serve, He can be a mighty jealous God, and He has taught us that we have to be very conscious of children. He suffers little children to come unto Him. And that means that when we mistreat a child, then we have got to stand up to the wrath. Children, it's all about how you see yourselves. You've got to believe that you have a gift. You are somebody. As long as you're sitting in the chair you're sitting in, nobody else can come and sit in that chair. They can sit in your lap, but they can't sit on the seat because you're there. You're somebody. Walk like you're somebody. Talk like you're somebody. Don't walk around with your britches hanging down, showing the crap in your back, balloon hat. Just because folks say it's popular, just because you see it on TV, those guys you emulate, those guys you copy, those guys you follow behind, have guard dogs all around their house. You can't even walk up to the gate. So why are you going to destroy your life by imaging and symbolizing yourself like you will never grow up to be a young man? When you put on breeches way too big and they're hanging down like that, that symbolizes, that says that you're telling the world, I am as far as I'm going to go in life. So I'm wearing big breeches too big just so I can see what they feel like. But I can't walk in them. They drag it down, and I have to pull them up every few steps I make. If your hands pulling up bridges, your hands are not available for you to write notes and make history and learn information and work math problems. If our girls want to walk around with tight, short dresses on, showing everything they got, then who's going to want to know you any better? Everybody knows how you made up. If our girls want to walk around piercing their nose and tongue, their eyebrows, and putting more holes in your ear than your ear was made to hold, and you don't even know what it symbolizes. In some African tribes, it means achievement. So at 16, you made them in achievements. You're making a mockery of what we're all about. So don't go around showing everything you got. My grandmother told me, it's not what you show, it's what you have that's important. Seriously, yourself, you go for a job interview one day, and you sneeze, and folks sitting at a table with you, and they look at their plate, look up at you, wondering if something end up over there. You don't want to be the negative discussion of a table, of a place when you walk in it. You want to grow up to show that you came from a home where a whole community of people loved you, cared about you, taught you, gave you things that you never expected to get. Doors were open for you that you never knew were even there, let alone to knock on. That's what Seraaj Family Homes is all about. And this is why I almost volunteer to be here. Because I think it's so important for people to know that they're loved. For children to understand when somebody sits up like Mr. Seraaj had to do and come up with the idea to convince the government, to convince the community, to convince the political leaders to support his efforts and provide homes where children need homes. And then convince a community of adults to open up their homes, open up their arms, open up all you have to these children. That's a mighty, mighty powerful man. That's a mighty, mighty powerful dream. And that's a mighty, mighty committed focus and direction. And anybody can do it. It has to be somebody that has the person, the young person at heart. Somebody that believes they've got something to impart to them. And then to get a group of people to work day in and day out, 365 days of the year. To wake up in the middle of the night, to take temperature and fevers when they could be sleeping. To get up and get breakfast ready when we can get a cup of coffee and go on about our day. To go in their cars and support a child in a program or go to a hearing or whatever it has to be there and say to that child, I'm with you, when they could easily be on their job making some money. But instead, they decided to support Seraaj Family Homes and look after some children, some young people who think the world has forgotten them. I'm standing here to tell you that many are called and few are chosen. And in this room are some chosen foster parents. In this room are some prayerful citizens. In this room are some mothers who may have never delivered a child of their own, but they've given breath and life to more children than words could ever express. In this room are some fathers who've embraced young men that they don't know what's happening in the minds of those children, but they stood by them. And in this room are some people that we will one day meet on the other side. There will be angels continuing to look down and support each one of us. I stand here tonight to tell you that it is no secret what God can do. What he does for others, he will do for you. I stand here to tell you that I'm working every day with young men and women who have grown up in foster homes. And they are the star students in my program. And already I know that their futures are shaped because somebody prayed for them, loved them at some point in their lives, enough for them to make it to college, and that they are now determined to make it for themselves. I'm standing to tell you, I didn't have any foster parents. But my mother died when I was 16 years old. And I was in my junior year of high school. And I let her words, her presence, and her belief in her dream, and her prayers for me, carry me to this point. My father and mother divorced when I was 5. I had no real father image. But I found my father, and I helped him and nursed him till his death. I know that God knows all. Another thing my grandmother used to say, heap see, but a few know. And I understand that. I also understand what it means when it says 1,000 eyes at night and 1 eye in the daytime. It teaches me that someone is always watching. Someone always knows. And that we should never give up on what we want and what we're trying to do for our individual selves. Children, don't give up. Don't give in to negativism. Right now in this nation, since September 11th, we're going to go through a type of depression. The governor is talking about letting prisoners out by the thousands because we cannot afford to pay for them to stay in prison. Some of them had no business in there in the first place. And those that are let out who are not appreciative enough to come and become positive citizens are going to try to influence you. You've got to remember the home training that you're getting. You've got to remember this night. You've got to remember Seraaj Family Homes. And you've got to know that because you were a part of Seraaj Family Homes, whether you're a foster parent or a child, you represent Seraaj Family Home by being one person. And anything you do negative in this community is going to cause a cutback, a drawback, and a problem for anybody else that wants to try to help somebody in the future. whether they are a politician or a millionaire. So be careful what we say and what we do and how we carry ourselves from this day on. Because everything you do now, you are in the Seraaj family. And you represent that family. You represent not Mr. and Mrs. Seraaj individually. You represent the vision and the dream for all of the Seraaj children that are to come. You say, well, I'm entitled to a mistake. No, you're not. Mistakes were made for you. You don't need to make them. None of us. We must be positive and forward-moving and energized to become one in every home. One. Because the results will be, just as our speaker said earlier, a thank you. Not only from the child, but from God Almighty, for doing what He set out for us to do. I'd like to leave you with a story that has been a part of my life. And I just started telling it since 1989 when I received my PhD degree. Leaving Florida State University, I was so proud of myself. I was playing the radio and driving back to Mississippi with my clothes in the car and my music blasting and raindrops falling on my windshield. And something happened that day that took me back to my early childhood. Song playing on the radio caused me to pull off the road, the interstate, get out of the car and scream to the top of my voice. I cried and people tried to stop to help me, and I told them to go on, just leave me alone, let me be. Because I thought I had done something. I thought I was going to be Miss Ann. I got my doctorate. I made it, first African-American female to get a PhD degree from Florida State University. Hey, in theater arts. I'm bad. I'm from Mississippi. Wait till I get back home now. Oh, they're going to say, doctor. Real confusing to hear. And this song came on. And it took me back to the front garret in the Delta of Mississippi. Or the garret, you know, is the front porch. That's what we call it. To my great-great-grandpapa, Papa Dallas. He lived to be 107 years old. And I believe God spared him to live that long. Now, I believe, just so he get a chance to talk to me. Papa Dallas was blind, had ugly scars around his eyes, and it was my job as a little lad, I had to be 6 years old, somewhere along in there, to take Papa Dallas back inside when he had to go, to sit there with him and call somebody if he needed something, to get him his coffee and his water. I couldn't go out and play with other children. My job was to be right there on that garret with Papa Dallas. Well, Papa Dallas was such a special person. He was able to tell who was coming up the road by their footsteps. He could call their name, and he got so good at it, he started telling folk what they were going to do. I remember one day T.B. Brown was coming up the road, and Papa Dallas said, "How you doing today, T.B.? All right, is that my T.B.?" He said, "It's me, Papa Dallas, but I told you last time, you said I'm going to be a preacher man. This T.B., I ain't going to be no preacher man. I'm going to be a baseball player." He said, "Oh, that's my preacher man, T.B. Preacher man, shows your bone. He kept right on rocking. In a few minutes, here come SMA, my girlfriend, with her long braids just skipping up the dirt road. "Here come my pretty gal, Nurse S. How you doing today, Nurse S?" "No, Papa Dallas, it's SMA all right, but I told you I wasn't going to be a nurse. I don't like to be around sick people, and I'm scared of blood." "All right, daughter, Nurse SMA. Shows your bone. He kept right on rocking. I turned to Papa Dallas. I said, "Papa Dallas, what happened to your eyes?" He said, "Oh, daughter, it's a long story. I don't like to talk about it much." Then he stopped and he leaned towards me and he patted me on my head and said, "But maybe you's the one I needs to tell it to, because day. I said, a spokesperson? Papa Dallas, I don't even not know what that means. It's all right, daughter. Spokesperson. Shows your bone, shows your bone. He said, now look down here on the Gary amongst my feet and see if you see a book down there. I got down to get the book. I got it, Papa Dallas. I got the book. But what that book say? And this is how I realized I had to be my young. I was trying to sound it out because I couldn't read yet. I said, it said, B-I-B-L-E. People. He said, no, dog. Bible. That very book, you need to learn to read. Because, daughter, that's a mighty powerful book. It's got some of the best literature you ever gonna hear about. Oh, daughter, that book will teach you to love your enemy, to understand people. It'll teach you the difference between right and wrong. Oh, daughter, that's a mighty powerful book. But in my day, baby, us wasn't allowed to learn to read and write because you know I was a slave. I wanted to study that book. And I used to steal away under a big oak tree, and there I tried to learn my alphabets. Well, the overseer, he caught me. And he drove me out on the plantation, and he called all the field hands. And he says, I want this to be a lesson to all of you daughters. You ain't got no right to learn to read and write. And then, daughter, he whipped me. And he whooped me. And he whooped me. And every time he clicked his hands together, cold chills would run up and down my spine. I remember it just like it was yesterday. He said, then, daughter, as if that wasn't enough, he turned around and he burned my eyes out. But the tears began to form in my eyes and trickle down my cheek. I said, I'm sorry, Papa Dallas. I didn't know. I didn't know. Shh, hush up, daughter. Because you see, today ain't nobody gonna beat you or burn your eyes out to stop you from learning. I want you to promise me something. And I threw my little hand up. I want you to promise me that you's gonna pick up every book you can and you's gonna read it from cover to cover. I will. I'm gonna pick up every book I can and I'm gonna read it from cover to cover. And promise me, yes sir, promise you're gonna go all the way through school. I will, Papa Dallas. I'm gonna go all the way through school and promise me, yes sir, promise me that you's gonna tell all the children my story. I will. I'll tell all the children your story. Because ain't nobody gonna beat you today. And I don't want you to cry for me. Because you see, without eyes, seem like I can see further than those who have eyes. I say, yes, sir. Well, that day when I was driving along, my car radio blasted, proud about my doctorate, that's what came back to me. That I hadn't really done a thing. But all I had become was an instrument of Papa Dallas's dreams. He planted a seed that even I ignored. But today I acknowledge that seed and I say, thank you, Papa Dallas, for making me realize that I'm blessed to be living in a time when I can pick up a book and read, and I can go to school. Children, you have a Papa Dallas looking at you every day and every night. Don't wait until their name and their life and their contribution to you becomes a dash. Born 1947, died 1958, dash. Born 1950, dash, died 2006. Born 1940, dash, died 2003. Don't wait on the dash. Because that dash can become a worration for you when you know that that dash represents love. Their dash represented cooking when they were tired. Their dash represented running behind you and trying to make you talk to them when you refused to talk. Their dash represents the times they stood by the door when you slammed it and you said something sassy when you should have been saying thank you. Papa Dallas taught me a mighty powerful lesson. That if I would just believe in myself, if I would just have the faith, if I would just learn to study and get ready, perhaps my chance would come. And I'm passing that on to you. Way back then, one vision, one light, one man sitting on the galley. He couldn't see the light, but he made it shine for me. I can't see him now, but I believe my light is shining for him. You can see your foster parents right now. Look at them and let them know with a smile that the light they are igniting for you now will smile, will glare and glow for them throughout your eternity. This little light mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you.
All the Enhanced Citizen Group Award, will you please come up? They're not here. The next, Ethelena and Wallace Gross. Would you please come up? Ethelena and Wallace have been married 26 years, and they have been to the Seraaj Family Homes for 1 year and 4 months. And we're proud to have them on board with us. Thank you. And she's also working on finalizing an adoption of the young person. Please give her Larry and Philip and Phyllis Phillips. Larry and Philip Phillips. They have been married for 7 years. They've been with Seraaj Family Homes for 2 years and 3 months. Our next category is honoring families who have worked diligently with kids to help reunify them back with their biological families. The group of people that you will be witnessing receiving this award is not an easy job. We ask our professional family teachers to take in children every day, give them all that they can give them, love them, care for them, nurture them, 24/7 hours in a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. We ask them to give their utmost to them. And then, in the end, we ask them to return them back easy job to take a young person, raise them, love them, and deal and honorably teach them to stay connected with their biological family. That's not an easy job, people, if you don't know. It's not an easy job to return the children that you love back. But this group of people have done that consistently. The first group goes to Carl and Lois Bennett. They've been married 34 years. Actively market our service throughout the state for us, traveling, speaking on the radio, appearing on TV shows. She just recently represented our company at University City, California. She had a great time. Richard Keys. Richard Keys. Richard has been with the company for 3 years. He's also a GPS trainer, meaning that he trains and assists other professional family teachers. Just a little added information concerning the reunification awards that we just have given away. Those awards are named the John H. Woolfolk Award. John H. Woolfolk was my biological father, who passed away in 1989. He taught us common sense. One of the things that he taught us is to believe in families. This is one of the things that we train all the staff at Seraaj Family Homes. We train them that the children have an inherited right to be connected with their genealogy. An inherited right. I was again in the lobby today and speaking with a professional family teacher who has done a tremendous job with a young man by the name of Don. They explained the philosophy of Seraaj Family Homes to me very briefly. They explained to me what they had done to keep him connected with his family. This is what we teach our people. Because when our children grow up, they have an innate drive in them to want to find out who is mom, who is dad. As I was speaking with Dr. Stewart today, she was sharing with me an experience of one of her students who after years and years had grown up in foster care, even though he's a junior at Alabama State, doing quite well. He wanted to go back to Ohio to reconnect with his mother. And we see that all the time with even adopted kids. Once they grow up, they want to reconnect. So we train our people in this. Again, it's not easy to do it. It's not easy to do it. So I'd like to give the people who just received those awards another hand, please. Our next award is considered one of the hallmarks of Seraaj Family Homes. It's called the Most Outstanding Unconditional Care Award. Again, one of our values and philosophical beliefs is that we don't believe in kicking children out of care for the same reason that caused them to come into care. We provide what is called unconditional love, unconditional care for them. We don't give up on our children. And the first award goes out to professional family teacher Adrian and Brenda Hasbury. Barbara Maxwell. Barbara Maxwell has been with the company for 2 years. Foster care recruiter. We're constantly in need of more recruit people to become professional family teachers. That the best recruitment source is 11 years, and she's been with the company for 2 years. She's also a GPS facilitator